In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about some of the tips I've got to get more models painted up as fast as you can and get them on the board so you can get to some gaming. Now, these are just some of the tips over the sort of like past year to 18 months that I've picked up that have really helped me to get more and more models on the board and painted up to a standard that I'm happy with. And hopefully you'll be able to take a few tips away with you and put something into your own painting workflow that'll help you to get more done. Now the first one, and this could be one of the most important ones in my opinion, is stop comparing yourself to other people's results. When I first started out with painting, I was always looking at things like the box art, and then I started looking through Instagram to look at what other people have painted up. Now there is no problem in taking inspiration from somebody else's paint job, or what's on the box art, or something like that. But what you don't want to do is paint up a model and then go onto something like Instagram and find all the flaws in your own model. That's just one way to really demoralize yourself, unless of course you are awesome and your paint job looks far better than everybody else's. Realistically, the only person you should be comparing yourself to is you at the end of the day. So once you've painted up your model, have a look at your last ones. Did you learn something new? Did you take something away from the previous paint jobs? Did you get a little bit better? Because every model you paint should be just getting a little bit better until you get to the point that you're really happy with. The next one is when batch painting, paint one model first. And I feel this is really, really important because every single model, no matter what, goes through the stage where it looks like crap. That's no exaggeration. I recently did a set of these like tieflings, and in the end I was actually really happy with the result, but there was a stage that I got to, like all 5 of them, where I hated them. I almost walked away from the project because I just didn't like the way they were looking and I didn't really think there was anything I could do to improve them. By taking at least one model and doing a paint job first on it and testing it up to see how it looks, you can test those colors and see if you like it, but you'll always have something that you can refer back to. So no matter where you're at with all the other models, you'll have something that looks good. You know that they're going to get to that stage in the end. It's definitely worthwhile doing. Take one model, paint it up, try out your colors, and then at least you've got something to refer back to so you can get through that awful, demoralizing stage where you've got like 10 units that are kind of half painted and looking like absolute rubbish. But at least you've got something to look to, and that's inspiration to get you through. And the next one might be a bit of a controversial one, but ultimately this is a hobby and you should be enjoying your hobby. So what I'd recommend is paint the stuff you enjoy. If you're painting some models or a set of models and you hate them, stop. Move on to something that you prefer. Eventually, hopefully, you'll go back into the mindset to go back to those models and paint them up. If you're just looking at models and you do not want to paint them, get rid of them. Sell them on, give them to a friend. Just get rid of them at the end of the day. There's nothing worse than having like this big grey pile of shame and then basically not painting anything at all because you're sat there going, I need to paint that, but I don't want to paint that, so I'm just not going to paint. That's like one of the worst things you could do for your hobby. So move on to something that you really want to paint. I can't tell you how many projects that I'm actually quite near to finishing that I've then looked at and gone, this is really boring me. It's putting me in a mindset that I do not want to paint, that I've just walked away from because in my opinion, it's the best thing to help me get through and just get other models done instead. Now obviously there's going to be situations like if you're a big gamer and you need set units, it's easier said than done, but you know what, hopefully you'll be able to push through and you've chosen an army that you like at the end of the day. But yeah, move on from something. If it's dragging you down, move on and come back later, and if you don't ever want to come back later, don't, and try not to feel guilty about it. Just offload those models if you can. The next one's an interesting one, but limit your color choice. There's nothing worse than having like 88 browns in front of you and going, well, I'm going to do the boots this brown color, then I'm going to do the belt straps this color, and then I'm going to do these kind of tassely bits this brown color, because it just slows things down. And at the end of the day, it doesn't look that much different. If you're painting to a professional standard, then maybe you want to have all of those colors. But if you're going tabletop and you just want to get models done, limit your choice of colors. But that's one thing that really helps me, is limiting my color palette rather than having the whole set of paints out in front of me, because otherwise I would have analysis paralysis and I just wouldn't paint anything, or they'd be just like, I don't know, rainbows all the time. Next one, and this one helped me the absolute most. It might not be the most important to everybody, but choose the paints that work for you. So when I started out back into this hobby, I was just using traditional paints, and I just guess I've never been good with traditional paints. I just haven't really got into it. It takes more concentration. So I went with contrast paints. And oh my God, I love contrast paint, speed paint, anything like that. Yeah, you know what, they can be pretty basic sometimes, but I love the results I can get in a very quick time scale. I just think they look fantastic. I really enjoy the process of painting with contrast paint and speed paints. It's just a nice, simple process. It's very little stress. It's good fun. So choose the paints that work for you. You might not like contrast paints or speed paints, but you might like something else. Make sure you find the right metallics that work for you. If you are using, metallics rather than like me, just using a grey contrast paint all the time. Getting the right paint makes a massive difference because it takes some of that stress out and it just takes some of that friction out of you wanting to actually sit down and paint. Next one, this might not apply to everybody, but for me, it is a huge help. Use a larger brush. I use the army painter, like the monster brush, I think it's called, one that you meant to use for monsters, on pretty much everything. If you watch any of my videos when it gets down to the painting process, unless I'm doing really fine detail, I will use this monster brush for pretty much every single thing. It helps because I'm not then having to look and go, oh, which of my 18 brushes am I going to use? Because I just pick up my monster brush and go. But also it means I can get more paint onto that brush so it takes less strokes. And this works mostly, I suppose, with army painter speed paints and contrast paints. But I love it. Just having that big brush for the vast majority of things and then a small brush for some fine detail saves me so much time and it makes painting a pleasure. Next one, dry brushing is your friend. I love me some dry brushing. I don't know, it's pretty basic, I suppose, but I love it. I love the results it comes out with. It's really easy to do once you get right as well. So for my painting method, it tends to be just a base coat of speed paint, contrast paint, and then I hit it with a dry brush of cream, and then I go back over with a wash. It's normally an oil wash, and you can pretty much call it there at the stage. It's a really simple, easy, and in my opinion, an effective way to get models onto a table. Dry brushing for me, what I do is obviously I get a dry brush. It's normally just a little makeup brush rather than I guess a miniature dry brush because they cost a fortune. Makeup brushes don't cost a fortune, or you can steal them from your significant other if you like. I dip it into my paint, I then wipe part of it off on a paper towel, and then I use my hand. That's why I normally have multicolored hands when I come to doing any painting videos and things, just to get those last bits off. And it tends to take less of the moisture out of the brush, or at least I hope it does, but it seems to give me better results. I don't get too much chalkiness and like bits all over the place. Love dry brushing. It is not the enemy. I know some people are looking, it's a noob technique or anything like that. It works wonders, so give it a go. And the final one is, find somebody else to paint with. One of my big inspirations is I paint with my friend James. I don't necessarily paint with him in the same room because that'd just be awkward if he was just like always sat on the sofa behind me. But I like to have somebody else that I can paint stuff with. So I could maybe do an army and he could do an army. I could do split units and everything else. When you're having those low moments where you're thinking, I'm not liking the look of this, I send pictures over, he'll send pictures over where he's at in the project, and it just inspires me again to get going. And you also have that end goal in mind because I know that actually once I do this like warband and he does his warband, we're gonna be able to do some gaming with this, which is fantastic. So try to find somebody else. Maybe it's a hobby group, maybe it's my Discord channel that you head on over to and chat with everybody else, but find other people or somebody else that you can paint with. And yeah, it just really helps that process along and just gives you a little bit of social inspiration. So those are my quick fire tips for helping you to get more models painted up. In my opinion, I think they work really well. Now, I should probably disclose this is more for a tabletop standard. If you watch any of my videos, some of my models, I personally think they look okay, but they're certainly not to the standard of some of those other amazing painters that exist out there. They've probably got some really fantastic tips for you to get to that quality. But if you want things done relatively quickly, stress-free, and in a pretty fun way, in my opinion, then these tips will hopefully help you. Let me know in the comments which one of these tips haven't you used beforehand, which one you can take away, which one stands out to you, and do you have any other tips as well for your fellow painters out there? Hope you've enjoyed that video. If you have, hit the like and subscribe button. Come along for some more 3D printing and painting content in the future. If you haven't already, head on over to my Discord channel. We talk all things hobby, painting, printing, all that jazz. Maybe it'll inspire you to do some more painting. You never know. And if you really want to, head on over to my Patreon page. It helps me just to keep the lights on and buy more supplies so I can do more videos like this in the future. In the meantime, stay safe. I'll see you soon. Bye.